in this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump is acting quickly to put in place tariffs targeting adversaries and allies alike. Trump announcing new levies on steel and aluminum, and more levies and more could be coming. Several countries are promising to retaliate. Meanwhile, Mexico is weighing its response to the 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. As a top supplier of the metals, America's southern neighbor has a lot at stake. And turning now to South Korea and its trade ministry, saying the Trump administration's tariffs on steel and aluminum imports will likely reduce demand and erode Korean exporters' profitability. Okay, for more insight into these tariffs and their potential impact, we're joined by Aurel Braun. Aurel is a professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto. Aurel, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Donald Trump continues to shower the United States' closest allies with punishing sanctions. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today saying that it would be entirely unjustified if those went into effect, saying Canada will respond, in his words, if it comes to that. Expand a bit on what you think these tariffs mean, especially to such a close and longtime ally.
Mr. Trump has proven to be the disruptor that he indicated when he was running for office the second time. He wants to shake up the international system. He has a variety of grievances. Some are his personal grievances against particular leaders, against certain kinds of industries, but he also reflects some of the dissatisfaction that has been longer term in the United States. The fact that he is using this particular tool, tariffs, in this fashion, he has suspended some tariffs, you will recall, for 30 days when it comes to Canada and Mexico, but then all of a sudden he imposed these tariffs on Canada and all countries that are supplying steel and aluminum, which means that no one is exempt. That even if you are a very close friend of the United States, even if you have an interdependent economy, you are not immune from Mr. Trump's actions to try to force other countries to pull back, to allow Americans to, in a sense, protect their industries.
Yeah. Now, Canada is among the top exporters of aluminum and steel to the U.S. What do you think the impact is going to be on Canada's exporters and the country's economy at large?
Clearly, the impact will be very negative. Places like Hamilton, a large city close to Toronto, is dependent very much on the production of steel. Perhaps 25,000 people in the city are employed in steel production and ancillaries, and other cities will be affected as well. Aluminum production in Quebec will be very badly hurt, and this, in many ways, is not a new dispute. So clearly, this has taken Canada by some surprise, but perhaps it is also worth re-examining why Canada has not acted to try to address these issues that have been long-standing, not restricted only to Mr. Trump or the Republican administration,
right,
but to these administrations. If you look at some of these demands that have been made, it is also the case that many things that Canada could and should have done for our own good, in terms of our increase of our national defense, in terms of border protection, in terms of addressing matters such as supply management in 5 different categories, ranging from dairy production to chickens and so on.
Right.
These have not been particularly helpful for the Canadian economy itself. So in some ways, we have not been particularly well prepared by the Trudeau government.
So in any way, do you blame the Canadian government? Because right now, Canadian officials, you could hear the frustration today in Trudeau's voice, basically saying we are their closest ally. And if North America does well, it does well when we work together the closest.
It is the case that we are the closest ally, the 4,000-mile undefended border between the two countries. It is the case that we share alliances, whether it's NORAD or NATO with the United States. We're a G7 country. But having said that, Mr. Trudeau has also had very bad personal relations with Mr. Trump. He has on occasion goaded Mr. Trump. And there's something to remember, that as much as these economies are intertwined, and as much as perhaps Mr. Trump is wrong on a number of issues, Canada is vastly more vulnerable than the
Right.
United States.
So do you think this is going to lead to an all-out trade war? What can Canada do right now?
It's an important question that you're asking, whether this will be an all-out trade war. And trade wars are a form of warfare, and in war, everything is unpredictable, and there's an enormous amount of pain, and they ought to be avoided. So I clearly hope that this is not what we're going to come to. What we need to do is we need to find solutions that will satisfy both parties, where there are things that the Americans are asking that are reasonable, that should be met because they may benefit us. There are other elements where we have to stand our ground. But just having confrontations which are based on personalities, which are based on bad chemistry, that is not going to help us.
Quickly, we only have about 30 seconds. What's the state of the USMCA? Will it be renegotiated?
It can be renegotiated next year. That is stipulated in the agreement, but it seems that Mr. Trump is already beginning that renegotiation through other means.
Indeed. Aurel, thank you so much for your insight. We'll be following this, and I'm sure we'll be talking again sooner than later. Thank you, my friend.